The Holy Gospel according to John. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there's a stench because he's been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. And Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Earlier this year, Susan and I saw a corpse flower at the Chicago Botanical Gardens. These are huge flowers that grow up to 8 feet tall, and they get their name from their smell. At full bloom, they smell like a rotting corpse in order to attract flies and other bugs that will carry their pollen off for reproduction. Well, I'm glad we saw it before it started its olfactory attraction. For I know from past experience that death stinks. About a year ago in Kentucky, we began to notice a rancid kind of smell that seemed to be coming from our clothes dryer. My investigation led me to check outside where the dryer vented to the outside of the house. And there I found the source of the smell in the bushes right next to the vent. It was the corpse of a dead possum, reminding me again how much death stinks. Yes, death stinks. You know it. I know it. Martha, the sister of the dead man, knows it. "Lord, already there's a stench, for he's been dead 4 days." Our whole planet knows how much death stinks as we top the 5 million deaths from COVID-19 earlier this week. Everyone who's ever lost a loved one also knows how much death stinks emotionally. It's not easy to go on without the physical presence of those we love. For when somebody we love dies, it creates a disruption in our lives, and grieving can take on a wide range of emotions, from sadness to anger, loneliness, laughter even, or even emptiness, and sometimes a sense of peace. It may at times feel like we've crashed into a brick wall, and the next moment we're laughing at a memory. When death breaks into our lives, it can stir questions about the very meaning of life. Why are we here? Why did they have to die? What will the future bring? I hear grieving behind both Mary and Martha's accusation of Jesus. We just heard Mary's today, echoing Martha's from a little earlier in the story. When she first saw Jesus, she said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." I hear a note of anger here about Jesus not caring like they expected. He didn't just drop everything and come right away when they sent a message to him that Lazarus was ill. I also sense a deep heartache that their beloved brother has died. The tears were flowing. And here's the thing I invite you to notice. Jesus joins Mary and Martha in experiencing the disruption that Lazarus' death had caused. Jesus, we're told, was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He literally groaned in his spirit and felt the gut-wrenching pain of loss, and tears formed on his own eyes. This day, as we gather to remember those who have affected our lives and have died, Christ shares with us in our grief and sorrow. I experienced the kind of disruption that Mary and Martha were experiencing 18 years ago at the death of my beloved mother. And before that, the death of my grandfather, who happened to be my middle namesake, and also, as it so happened, died on my 21st birthday. On this All Saints Sunday, I'll remember those two as well as many others who have enriched my life in many ways. And I'm sure that many of you also have ordinary saints that you will remember today, people who have shared special times with you, people who have loved you and whom you have loved. Today, we remain connected with our ancestors in the faith, and they continue to provide inspiration and direction for how we might live out our lives of faith in the here and now. And this remembrance brings the reality of death to center stage. As we remember those who have died, we must face a reality that much in our culture teaches us to avoid and even denies, that we too are going to die. When someone dies, we often even use terms like past or expired to try to soften the reality. And I know that some hospitals even have special carts to transport the dead corpses through their halls to the morgue, which are made to look like an empty cart is being pushed. The healthcare industry often treats death as an enemy force. Life versus death, these are opposing forces, and all the latest technology and medicines are employed on the side of life so that death may be kept at bay for as long as possible. Well, today, the story from John invites us to imagine a different set of opposing forces, not life versus death, but love versus death. Jesus loved Lazarus. When Jesus saw Mary and the others weeping, it broke his own heart wide open. Jesus' love was visible in his tears, and the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" What happens next is pretty amazing. It's so incredible that some biblical scholars propose that it was just a legend. And others will assert that it actually happened the way that John says it did. Well, whichever way you happen to lean, I hope you can be gracious and understanding towards people with a different view. And perhaps all can agree that in at least one sense this story is true. And the truth is simply this: love is stronger than death. Jesus' love for his friend Lazarus was stronger than that stink of death. Jesus' love for you and me is stronger than death. Jesus shows us in calling forth Lazarus from the tomb that he is the resurrection and the life, and that this pattern of dying and rising is the way of life for all who hear his call. Can you enter yourself into this story and hear Jesus calling you by name and then commanding you, "Come out"? His love is stronger than any tomb, and our grave clothes no longer need to bind us. We too can come out of our tombs to freely love and serve others, because the love of Jesus continually calls us forth. Come out. Emerge from your insecurity, your fears, from every and anything that holds you back from being all that God has created you to be. There are countless cases of people who have had near-death experiences that return to their lives completely transformed. They tell others that they no longer fear death, and they show by their actions that they become more loving and caring people. And perhaps another story, kind of a playful story, might help transform us as well. It's not a story from the other side of death, but rather from the other side of birth. Two twins, a brother and a sister, are talking to one another in the womb. And the sister says to her brother, "You know, I believe that there is life after birth." Her brother protested vehemently, "Well, no, this is all there is. This is a dark and cozy place. We have nothing else to do but cling to the cord that feeds us." The little girl insisted, "Well, there must be something more than this dark place. There must be something else, a place with light, where there's freedom to move." Still, she could not convince her twin brother. After some silence, the sister said hesitantly, "Well, I have something else to say, and I'm afraid you won't believe that either, but I think there is a mother." Her brother became furious. "A mother?" he shouted. "What are you talking about? I've never seen a mother, and neither have you. Who put that idea in your head? As I told you, this place is all we have. Why do you always want more? This is not such a bad place after all, so we have all we need, so let's just be content." Well, the sister was quite overwhelmed by her brother's response, and for a while she didn't dare say anything more. But she couldn't let go of her thoughts. And since she only had her twin brother to speak to, she finally said, "Well, don't you feel the squeezes every once in a while? They're quite unpleasant and sometimes even painful." "Yes," he answered. "Well, what's so special about that?" "Well," the sister said, "I think that the squeezes are there to get us ready for another place, much more beautiful than this, where we will see our mother face to face. Don't you think that's exciting?" The brother didn't answer. He was fed up with this foolish talk of his sister, and felt that the best thing would be to simply ignore her and hope that she would leave him alone. Well, all of us who have been born into this life know that He has some surprises coming. Jürgen Moltmann, in writing about death, once said, "We still don't know what awaits us, but we do know surely who awaits us." Why shouldn't we trust the one we have trusted throughout our life once our lifetime ends? Then we don't die into eternal nothingness or infinite silence. We die into the eternally bounteous God and the wide space of God's creative love. We all live between the borders of birth and death. Now, some of us are closer to one or other of those borders. Nevertheless, the key to living well and whole throughout our life remains the same: knowing through and through that we are God's beloved children. We were beloved before we were born, will remain beloved after we die. We're beloved for all eternity. God's love keeps us connected with those who've gone before us through that gate of death. God's love will keep us connected to those who will go on living the day we die. And that is really what we celebrate this All Saints Sunday and at every baptism, funeral, or memorial service, that love is stronger than death. Death has lost its sting and some of its stink as well. The love of the crucified and risen one keeps us connected to all who have gone before us, to all who will come after us, and to one another in this magnificent communion of saints. So once again this day, we are loosed from our grave clothes to live with a love that never ends. Thanks be to God. Amen.